there. We're talking about it right here, right now. Mornings on News Talk 102.3.
News Talk 102.3 KXYL, 7:44 in the morning. Yesterday, Attorney General Greg Abbott, who's running for governor, as well as Ted Cruz, our senator out of the state of Texas, visited Lackland Air Force Base to view the conditions of children that had been brought across the border illegally. Following their tour of Lackland Air Force Base, here's what Ted Cruz had to say.
But the real priority should be solving this problem so that next year we don't have 145,000 little boys and little girls crossing illegally into this country. We get back to where we were in 2011. 2011 was 3 years ago. We had just 6,000. What has changed? The two things that have changed between 2011 and now is, number one, the Obama administration has made a decision that they will instruct the Border Patrol not to enforce the law. There is pending litigation right now within ICE of agents frustrated because they're told by their supervisors, ignore the law, you're not allowed to be effective law enforcement officials.
So Senator Ted Cruz blaming the surge in children crossing the border on the Obama administration. Joining us on the program this morning, Mark Jones, the Joseph D. Jamel Chair of Latin American Studies, Professor and Chair of Political Science and Fellow in Political Science at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy, joins us. Mark, was the senator correct in blaming the situation on the Texas border on the Obama administration?
Well, I think there's a lot of blame that goes around to everybody. We clearly have, and I think one thing that everybody can agree on is we have a broken immigration system, and the failure to fix it, the root cause of that lies both with President Obama, but also with Republicans in the House or Senate, including Senator Cruz. That is, our political leaders in Washington have not been able to come to some type of agreement that would allow us to have a total reform of the way we do immigration, from border security to a guest worker program to providing some type of way to deal with the reality that we have approximately 11 to 12 million people who are undocumented living here presently in the United States.
Now, how much of the immigration debate is driven purely just by politics and polling and trying to get voters out in November versus how much of it's a genuine desire to see something done?
Well, I mean, we clearly, on both sides of the aisle, we see immigration used for political purposes. Democrats like to use the lack of immigration reform as a wedge issue to drive Latino voters away from the Republican Party and towards the Democratic Party. And Republicans like to use the border security problems in particular to mobilize their core supporters and especially point out the failures of the Obama administration.
Now, the mantra from the Republican Party right now is border security first. We do nothing until we secure the border. How do you see that playing out in South Texas and among Latino voters?
Well, I think at a certain point you have to stop saying the border has to be secure, the border has to be secure, et cetera, because it becomes a bridge too far. Or it's always one greater level of security. The reality is our border is more secure now than it's ever been. Now, we could go to a North Korea type situation where you had a completely militarized border, but I don't think many of us would want to see the massive expense of money to do that, plus the blocking of the free flow of goods from Mexico. And lastly, a lot of the more police state aspects that come into play when you're trying to militarize a border, in particular the threat to civil liberties of U.S. citizens, which already one could say are being somewhat undermined in South Texas. If you travel through South Texas, you have to go through checkpoints, something that we're not too used to out in other areas of the state.
Yeah, I had a friend that went down to Brackettville, Texas. They've got a set of the Alamo that John Wayne filmed his movie on. And my friend told me that if you ever go down that direction, be sure and take all your documentation with you because you will be stopped by Border Patrol.
Right, and that's not just right on the border. It could be 30, 40, or 50 miles away from the border, and you still can get stopped, which I think many civil libertarians have some issues with, as being required to show their papers to armed officials.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What's the legality of that constitutionally? Can they legally force me to show them or prove that I am here legally just because I'm driving down the road?
Technically, they can't. I think most of the information we have says that you cannot be compelled to show your citizenship documents or driver's license or passport. But if you don't, they do have the right to keep you there on the side of the road for 2 to 6 hours, and even to, say, take you in and interrogate you. So while you have your constitutional rights, they can make you suffer if you want to have them respected.
All right, so recently, Texas Governor Rick Perry, Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst, and House Speaker Joe Straus directed the state's public safety department to begin a $1.3 million per week surge of state law enforcement to enhance security along the Texas-Mexico border. But what I'm understanding is that the DPS troopers sent to the border are not there to enforce immigration law, but to participate in crime prevention?
Right, yeah, they are not there. They're not going to be Border Patrol agents. I think you can look at that from two perspectives. One is the desire of particularly Governor Perry and Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst and now Speaker Straus to show a signal to Republicans and Republican activists and Republican voters that they're trying to do something about border security, because polls indicate that border security is a major issue for many Republicans in the state. And this is a way for our elected leaders to show that they're doing something. It also allows them to send a signal to Washington, both to President Obama, but also to House and Senate Republicans, making a statement, you guys aren't doing your job, and if you're not going to do your job, we're going to do it in Texas. Now, the reality is that the DPS agents aren't going to really have that much of an impact on border security. Now, they may help in some areas where crime is occurring, and in Border Patrol agents or others don't have the time or ability to actually monitor it. But overall, I think the actual impact of these DPS officers on border security, remember, it's a very long and very wide border, I think it's going to be relatively minimal. This is more symbolic than anything else.
So we're going to spend $35 million over the course of the rest of this year to make a symbolic political statement.
I think that's most likely the case. No, that's not to say that it isn't going to have at least some modest positive impact on border security. Simply having the presence of the officers there will do that. But it's not going to resolve any of the underlying problems. And when those officers leave, the problems that were there before they arrived are going to be there afterward. And really, until we have some type of comprehensive immigration reform where we deal with everything, ranging from border security to the creation of a viable guest worker program to the creation of some way for people who are presently undocumented to normalize their status, which may or may not include a pathway to citizenship. Until we do something like that, we're going to have these problems. And also until we help Central America resolve some of the problems they have, in particular the threat that places like Guatemala or Honduras could turn into failed states. Until we do that, we're going to not be able to keep people from coming to the United States. Because, I mean, if you think about the really desperate situation that people have to be in to cross, often women and children, the country of Mexico, if you want to think about danger, we talk about the U.S.-Mexico border often being dangerous. It is far more dangerous for Central American migrants to traverse Mexico, where they're abused by both criminal gangs, but also the police and other government officials. So that these people are truly desperate. And so we also need to be thinking about some of the push factors, things that motivate people to immigrate despite all of the risks from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
Now, Governor Rick Perry has ordered the surge. Wendy Davis, running for governor on the Democratic ticket, has called for a special session. You have any analysis of her action?
Well, I think Wendy Davis is hoping. Wendy Davis, I think, realizes that the special session could lead to a very negative situation for Texas Republicans, in that you would have lots of debate, with some representatives and senators perhaps utilizing anti-Hispanic rhetoric. And then also, there's nothing that the special session can do, because in the end, border security and all immigration-related factors are federal responsibilities. And so the only thing that could come out of a special session are Republican activists who are frustrated because nothing's done, and Latino and Hispanic voters who have become more alienated by what they view as anti-Hispanic rhetoric emanating from some of the Republican state representatives and senators. So a special session is just a lose-lose for the Republican Party, and I think probably Wendy Davis realizes that, and therefore if she can try to push for it, even if she realizes that odds are it's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, it's just that's another deal where we get to pay the money to bring the lawmakers to Austin and have a special session on the hopes that somebody will have a Clayton Williams moment.
Right, and really, there's nothing that I think Governor Perry's already made the point very clearly that the only thing the legislature would do would be to appropriate money for DPS, which Speaker Strauss, Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst, and Governor Perry have already done. So there's really nothing. There's no good that can come from a special session, and the only thing that can probably occur is heated rhetoric that just alienates more Latinos and Hispanics from the Republican Party and creates division and creates a more divisive atmosphere within the legislature.
We're speaking with Mark Jones, political scientist, Rice University. We'd like to thank you for being on the program with us today. Is there anywhere we can follow your work or your writings?
Oh, you can on the Baker Institute website. If you go to the Rice University's Baker Institute online, you can find my research there on both Latin America and Texas politics.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
All right. Thank you for having me. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thanks. 7:56 here on News Talk 102.3. He said something, and I let it slide. I didn't bring it up, and I don't know if we're not going to have a whole lot of time to do this right now, but I'm going to throw it out there. And he said, until we help these other countries, and I thought, goodness, it's not enough just to secure our borders and to stop the illegal flow, but we've got to go make these other countries better. What, so that then they won't be coming?
That's sort of what NAFTA was all about, to help spread prosperity to Central and South America. If you have prosperity and jobs and opportunity there, you wouldn't have the flow of immigrants into the United States across the southern border. That's the logic behind that argument. I read a book that described why we have an immigration issue, and basically we're in a situation where immigration is key. Our immigration is key to these South American economies. Let's go to line one here really quick. We've got Robin on the line with us. Robin, welcome to the program.
How are y'all today?
Doing good.
Good. I have a quick question. I may have misheard him. Did he just say that by closing the borders, we would be losing our civil liberties?
What he's saying is if you secure the border, if you add more security to it, then that's going to be kind of a militarization of the border. He was going over the top and describing it as a North Korean example. But if you do travel down on the border, you are going to be stopped by Border Patrol. You are going to have to show documentation. And the question is, how much more of that, or how much do you want to increase that?
Well, here's my issue. We're letting MS-13 folks in without any issue at all, dumping them off into the inner cities where there's already a gang problem.
Yeah.
But he has a problem with someone stopping you and asking you for ID.
Well, I think he's saying that would be increased if we continue down the path that we're on right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, but I have a problem with that. I mean, I'm an American citizen. I ought to be able to drive through my state without being stopped and having to prove that I'm Brian.
You're right. You're right about that. The issue it seems kind of strange to me is like you can't profile one way, but you can profile the other way. It's okay to stop a family who is
Yeah, if we can do that here in Texas just randomly, well, why can't we profile people at an airport and say, you know what, of the 10 people standing in that line, those 4 are most likely to be carrying a bomb. Let's check them out.
Yeah, let's turn Grandma inside and upside down in her wheelchair.
Yeah, yeah.
And totally strip search her or strip search a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, and the question is, you send more border agents down to the border, you set up more checkpoints, you put up more fences. What's to keep the Border Patrol from having the same insanity that TSA has?
That's true too.
I think that's the concern.
The TSA definitely. Well, but the problem is right now is the Border Patrol is not being allowed to do their job right now. I mean, they're busy changing diapers and they're busy finding homes for people that are not citizens. I mean, I get that there are kids down there that have issues, and I get that there are kids that are in a bad situation because their country is in turmoil right now because of all of the cartels and the gang members and all the things that are going on down there. But that, Obama likes to say, well, we're not the nation's police department. We can't go in and do everything for everybody. But isn't that what he's doing right now?
Yep, pretty much. And there's the definition of insanity. Hang on, I got to get to news real quick. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. CBS News coming up.
Radio for the heart of Texas. KXYL FM Coleman and KXYL AM Brownwood. It's 8 o'clock.